All right, we are here with high-powered UFC executive and Hall of Famer Matt Hughes here in Montreal. And you know, we were at the open workouts today, Matt. No Nick Diaz. Any truth that you might be called upon for a late replacement fight?
No, I am
Not gonna happen.
not in any shape whatsoever to fight, and definitely not in any shape to fight George St-Pierre.
Where do you fall upon with Nick Diaz? I mean, so many people fascinated with this guy. I think for issues like this, where you don't know if this guy's going to show up, he's someone that is just the media cannot get enough of this guy, and I think he doesn't want any of the media to deal with.
You know, you got a guy fighting for the title, and he doesn't come to an event like this. It's just plain old bad for the sport. So I can see why a lot of people are saying they hope he doesn't win the title because they just won't see him out here. You know, I see that aspect people are saying to me.
I mean, as someone that you went through this so many times, and I'm sure there's a lot of places you would have rather been fight week than out talking about the fight, answering a lot of the same questions. But, I mean, amongst the fighters, I mean, you guys just kind of understand this is part of the job.
This is definitely part of the job, you know, talking to all the media. You know, when a fan comes up to me, that's part of the job. You know, that person, whether they bought a ticket, whether they watched it on pay-per-view, they're writing my paycheck. So, I mean, you got to take care of the fans, you got to take care of the media just the way it is.
Now, it's been just over a month since we got the announcement of your involvement here with the Zuffa, looking over athlete development as well as government relations. Now that you've kind of eased into the job, tell us a bit about how that is going and kind of the aspects you've been working on.
Not a lot going on so far. I did get called to come up to Montreal here for this week, as well as I was supposed to go to South Dakota and go talk to the South Dakota government on making it legal there. And so they chose for me to come up to Montreal instead of going to South Dakota. Those are the two things I'm playing. Doing a little PR up here for the UFC this week.
Does it at all amaze you that we're still getting stories, you know, coming out of South Dakota, you know, the state representative, I mean, just making ridiculous comparisons of mixed martial arts, I mean, going so far as to compare it to child pornography. Do you kind of just roll your eyes that we're still getting these kind of stories in 2013? Because you came up at a time where it was much more prevalent.
I think it all comes down to education. These people making those silly sayings need to educate themselves and find out what this sport's all about.
Are you dealing at all with what's going on in New York right now, or are you kind of not hands-on with that?
I have not been in New York yet. Kind of surprised I haven't. They've told me that would be the first place I'd go to when I get done here is New York. So we'll see. I'll find out more when I get there.
As you know, simply a fan watching on Saturday night, clearly the welterweights are front and center. 3 big fights on the main card. Any particular performances you're looking forward to? We've got Carlos Condit and Johnny Hendricks, and of course the main event, and then Jake Ellenberger, Nate Marquardt. This really kind of sorts out the welterweight class on Saturday night.
This is a big welterweight card, no doubt about it. The Condit fight is going to be interesting to me, you know, but I'll be watching George and Diaz. I think that's going to be a close fight. I'm interested to see, you know, in the first 2 rounds whose game plan is going to pan out for him. And the last couple rounds are going to be very interesting as well. You know, I think George has never faced anybody that's going to have as good as cardio as him. And Diaz might have a little better cardio than GSP, and this is the first time that's ever happened. So it'll be interesting how that goes in the 4th and 5th round.
One other question, when it comes to kind of just evolution of the sport, judging is something you've always talked about very much. Do you kind of want to see your role kind of be implemented towards that area as well, whether it be, you know, some former fighters getting involved, and I know there's pluses and negatives to that with certain relationships and such, but tell us about the judging process and if that's something that kind of you want to be kind of your issue that you tackle.
I would love for that to be, and when I talked to the UFC, I said, hey, the biggest problem I see with the UFC and fighting in general is judging. I hate it when guys go up there and they think they've won 3 rounds. I think they've won 3 rounds. The people knowledgeable with the sport have thought they won 3 rounds and they lose a split decision. So I think it's the weakest aspect of the sport, and I'd love to put my hands in there and help out in some way. You brought up an interesting concept with fighters, but then they have relationships with fighter A or fighter B, so we just need some more education there as well, and teaching these judges how to judge.
Yeah, just personally, I think that there's also a mixture when it comes to, you know, judges that understand what they're watching, but also I think just having certain options. It seems that right now, whether it's a very strong round or a flip of the coin round, that's a 10-9, and nearly having to finish a guy, that is the only time we go into 10-8 territory. It seems that maybe not half-point systems, but just more usage of 10-8s, 10-7s, and more of a variation. It seems like a 10-9 is just about the only option a lot of these judges are utilizing.
Yeah, and there's been several fights to where it was a 5-round fight, and I had a couple 10-8 rounds in there, and there was no judge that had even one round at 10-8. So definitely just education there as well.
And my final question, recently Randy Couture, going over to Spike TV, made a comment that he kind of bugged him, the fact that you got this promotion. Is there bad blood with you and Randy, or how did you react to that statement by Randy?
I think the statement by Randy had nothing to do with, it wasn't aimed towards me, it was aimed towards the UFC. And what Randy should realize is this deal with me and the UFC started well over a year ago. So we've been talking about this for a long time. Randy and I have played our cards a lot different in the fact that I've always been very loyal to the UFC, and Randy had a lawsuit against the UFC trying to come out of his contract. So the way we've handled ourselves is probably the deciding factor on why I got the VP role.
Well, he is the VP, but hasn't traded in for the suit and maybe the shaved head or anything like that. Matt Hughes, a UFC Hall of Famer, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you, guys.
Looking forward to UFC 158. It's coming up Saturday night.